here are the pros and cons for a filibuster. Number one, it forces people to actually talk. It's not just mob rule. So let me get my notes out. It forces compromise. If major legislation needs 60 votes, and by the way, I'm going to give credit where credit is due. This is from the great site called usconstitution.net. If there's a major legislation that needs 60 votes, it often has to attract at least some bipartisan support. You just don't have mob rule to force something through. My notes from the website said that it prevents whiplash, meaning without a filibuster, a party could pass sweeping laws with only 51 votes, but yet the next majority that comes in just erases it. So it doesn't do anyone any good. And because the Senate takes pride in their rules, it preserves the Senate's identity as being the deliberative body of the nation. Now, whether they actually deliberate or they just threaten and throw grenades at one another, verbal grenades, that's for interpretation. The cons of a filibuster, it enables a minority veto. So in this particular instance, from what the polling data looks like for the SAVE Act, I think that the underlying premise of it for mandating federal identification in federal elections, from every polling place that we've seen on every outlet, at least 80% of Americans agree with that, supposedly. But for reasons that the Democrats are doing this and saying we're going to threaten a filibuster, there are other things that they're saying, nope, we're not going to let this go to a vote. So you have a minority preventing this, what would, or at least has been told to us, being a very popular premise, from actually seeing the light of day for a vote. And it rewards obstruction, this filibuster, which is another one of the detriments to it. So back and forth, I know we only have a certain amount of time to get to all three things here. The filibuster is something to look up, understand it's a rules-based matter. It's not in the Constitution, but it comes from the Constitution, where the Senate makes their own rules. And you have, in a nutshell, filibuster is there in order to bring something to the floor in the Senate. You have to stop the deliberation. If someone keeps threatening the filibuster, you can do a motion for cloture, but you're going to need 60 votes in order to stop the deliberation and bring it to a vote.
And I mean, and the one thing that, you hear a lot of is, well, why don't we just end the filibuster? As Rob said, this is just a Senate created rule. It's not based in anything in the Constitution other than each chamber can create its own rules. And the reason, I mean, there's a solid political reason behind it. And it's, as we've talked about before, it's the unintended consequences where, back, it was like 10 years ago, when the Democrats were running into this issue about getting certain appointees appointed either in the lower level courts or different positions, they eliminated the filibuster for these appointments. And, so they got to push through a lot of their appointments. Well, once you eliminate that rule, though, then when the Republicans took office, you did the same thing. And they're like, you eliminated this rule, so now we're just going to push through all of our people. And so the rule's there for a reason. And even though, it's maybe something that I think is, I don't necessarily agree with all the time, it has its purpose. Because as Rob said, we need the Senate to be deliberative. And the other thing is, what Rob and I were discussing beforehand, is this is actually, believe it or not, how the founders intended this to be. That the government was created this way to be slow and deliberative and sometimes almost obstructionist, because they wanted to make sure that people decided things and fully debated it. Now, the problem is that you don't have people that, in my opinion, are debating in earnest. They're not being honest. They're just debating. Good faith. Say again? Yeah. They're not debating in good faith. That they're just doing it to be obstructionist, which is not what the government was meant to be.